Right, it is something straight out of Jurassic Park. Sir Peter Jackson has announced that he's joining forces with Colossal Biosciences to de-extinct the moa. These are the people who brought back the ancient dire wolf, and they reckon they can do the same for the moa within a decade.
When humans first arrived on Aotearoa, New Zealand, about 800 and 900 years ago, there were 9 species of these dinosaur-sized giant birds.
It's one of the only birds ever known that has no wings at all.
Their existence was almost mythological.
What I've heard over the last 2 days fills me with hope.
Empowering.
Hope is restored.
Peter's a visionary. He always held this dream.
We're now at the point where being extinct isn't really the end of the story.
Beth Shapiro is Colossal Biosciences Chief Science Officer and is with me this morning. Beth, good morning. Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Just checking, is this a prank?
I hope not. No, absolutely not. This is one of the most exciting announcements that we have been able to share with the world, I think, in the last couple of years. And Colossal is doing some pretty exciting things.
How did it happen? So Peter Jackson came to you, or you go to Peter Jackson. How's it work?
Wow, it started some time ago. I actually think he reached out to us. You know, he is an avid supporter of moa de-extinction, but also of the protection of New Zealand's indigenous fauna. And I think he, like us, sees this as an opportunity both to bring this iconic species back to life, but also to expand the types of technologies that we have to protect living species from becoming extinct.
That will be one argument, before we get into the science of it, that why don't we look after the ones we've got rather than bring back old ones?
I think that we can do both. I think a lot of the technologies that we are developing will have immediate application to protecting living species. It isn't a zero-sum game. As we work toward the 4 species that Colossal has now announced that we're still working on, mammoths, dodos, thylacines, and now the moa, we will develop new tools that really, from across the animal tree of life, can help protect living species become extinct. These same technologies are incredibly useful as additional resources that we have to protect species.
Dinosaurs?
I would love to see a dinosaur someday, I think, and not just in the movies. But unfortunately, the oldest DNA that we have been able to recover is somewhere between 1 and 2 million years old. Dinosaurs have been extinct for more than 66 million years, and there is no dinosaur DNA. So we will not be able to use this approach to bring back dinosaurs.
Right, but we do have moa DNA in fossils, in caves in the South Island, and we have had people going in and retrieving that. What do you do with that? Tell us the science of it. How do you turn that into a living bird?
Well, when an animal dies, the DNA that's in its cells starts getting chopped up into smaller and smaller and smaller fragments. This happens when we're alive, too. We go outside, UV radiation hits our DNA and it breaks it. But we have proofreading mechanisms that will come through and fix that damage so we don't get cancer every time we go outside. That, of course, requires energy. And once you're dead, there's no more energy. So those damages in the DNA accumulate. So when we get DNA from a moa bone, those fragments of DNA are really short and they tend to have characteristic types of damage. Now, in the field called ancient DNA, we've developed over the last 30 years ways that we can computationally take those tiny little broken pieces of DNA and piece them together to reconstruct that entire genome sequence, the DNA code that makes a moa a moa. So that's what we're doing. We're collecting fossil bones from across New Zealand. We are extracting DNA, piecing together the genomes of all 9 of the extinct species of moa, and we're going to compare them to genome sequences from their living relatives and learn where the moa are different from each other and different from living birds. So and then we turn to tools of genome engineering. That's right.
So because I read up when you were in the news, and this was about the dire wolf, and critics said, look, you haven't brought back the dire wolf. You've edited cells inside a grey wolf to make it more dire than grey. than it previously was. Will you do a similar thing with the moa? You're not creating a brand new bird. You'll take another bird and edit its DNA to make it more like a moa would have been. Is that right?
So we start with a living species and we identify the fewest number of changes that we can make to that DNA, the DNA of that living species, and still bring back the features of the extinct species that defined it, that made it fit in that habitat. So we are starting with living DNA. That's the way we have to do it because we can't piece together an entire genome from an extinct species. And because we care about de-extinction and animal welfare, our goal is to make the fewest number of edits possible to still bring that species back, that species defined as those phenotypes.
Beth, people will say that you're playing God, this is unethical. What do you say to them?
No, people have been playing God in that way for as long as we have existed. We took gray wolves and we turned them into things like Chihuahuas and Great Danes. We took teosinte and turned it into corn. Here, what we're doing is we're using the tools that we've developed to be able to recreate species that we can put into ecosystems and make those ecosystems more robust, more resilient. We're facing a crisis of biodiversity loss. This is one of the ways that we can use our big brains and the tools that we developed to help stop species from becoming extinct, to help create a future that is both biodiverse and filled with people.
So you make one, is that the goal? You make one, where do you house it? Where do you keep it? And does it have a buddy? Do they mate?
The goal is to create populations of species that are able to thrive on their own eventually in wild habitats. One of the things that we're working on with our partners, this project is led by the Ngaitahu Research Center in collaboration with us and other academic teams. And so we will be working with them to identify sites in New Zealand where we might be able to eventually reintroduce moa, where we can work also to create habitats that are more robust and resilient and hopefully better places for other endemic New Zealand flora and fauna to flourish.
Within 10 years?
Within 10 years. Well, we hope to have the first moas born within 10 years. The eventual rewilding will take much longer than that, but this is a long-term partnership. We're really excited about moas and about this partnership to help preserve and protect other New Zealand fauna.
Beth, just quickly, how tall would the first one be?
Oh, that is a great question. Our target is the New Zealand giant moa. This is the South Island giant moa. This is one of the largest birds. I'm very short, so I like to think that it's probably going to be about 2 to 3 times as big as me, which would be sort of fun
3.5 meters
and daunting.
3.5 meters the South Island one's got to, right? And 230 kilograms. It's like Sam Whitelock. We're bringing him back. Beth, thank you very much for that. Beth Shapiro, Colossal Biosciences, Chief Science Officer, bringing back the moa in conjunction with Peter Jackson and a whole bunch of others, 14 after 7.